welcome back to the Survival and Basic Badass Podcast with Kevin and Chuck. Today, we're going to talk about guns, and more guns. So, basically, I'm pretty excited.
I know you're excited. This is your favorite topic.
My favorite topic. So, I don't know. I was just kind of thinking, guns seem to be under attack all the time lately. And I've already preached to you guys enough about the Second Amendment. Although, really, is there ever enough preaching about the Second Amendment?
No such thing.
I feel like every day we could have that discussion. But, seeing as maybe nobody would listen to the podcast, I decided maybe I'll, venture off.
Mm-hmm.
Like maybe the Third Amendment or something. I don't know.
Right.
We could go anywhere. Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
So, when it comes to guns, to me, there are certain essentials. Now, I understand some of you guys live in different places, New York City all right, really New York City's it. Maybe D.C., where they're idiots and you can't have guns. Didn't D.C. work that out, though? They got sued or something? The Heller decision or something?
Yeah, I mean, Illinois is still like that.
Chicago.
California is still like that.
So, they're stupid places, whatever. Yeah, but you can kind of fight and get a handgun, I'm sure, somewhere. I don't know. If not, you can buy them on the street, right?
That's right. That's
where
you get them in Chicago.
That's where you get them. Now, even though you guys are thinking, oh, wait, you just told me to buy illegal handguns on the street. Well, really, is any gun illegal when we have the Second Amendment?
That's right.
Really?
That's right.
Shall not be infringed, right?
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed.
Not be infringed. Now, I looked up infringed, and it means to limit.
Mm-hmm.
So if you tell me I can only put 7 bullets in my gun, I feel like you might be infringing.
Yeah.
If you tell me I can't buy my handgun from a crackhead on the corner, you might be infringing.
Right.
If you tell me...
Where is the crackhead going to get enough money to buy more crack if he's not an entrepreneur?
Entrepreneur, right there. So, secret of the pros. So, all right, no big deal. Enough ranting about the Second Amendment. So, what I was going to say is everybody should kind of work towards a handgun. But maybe that's a little bold for you. Maybe we're going to start a little bit slower. I think every home, should have lots of guns. And we'll talk about different purposes and what I think. But I think at a minimum, your prepper goals should, don't even talk to me about a gun before you have at least 2 weeks of food storage.
Right.
Then you're just an idiot. You got your priorities all wrong.
Right.
But when you have 2 weeks of food storage, your next move should be some kind of gun. I would say first gun, I know I was just kind of thinking handgun, maybe shotgun.
Right.
Shotgun for your home defense for your first gun.
Double-aught buck. That's what I recommend for home defense. All
right. I like it. I buy it, I don't know. It says like military something or another on there, double-aught buck, and I buy, I don't know, it's cheap.
I have my shotgun, my personal gun that I use for home defense that's next to my bed in my bedroom. First one is birdshot. That's just warning. I don't want to blow through any walls and shoot my kids in the head when they're trying to do anything. Birdshot's not going to do that, but it's also not going to stop somebody that's adamant about killing you.
All right.
Second, double-aught buck. Then
we go
a
right
slug
slugs
and candy cane.
Candy cane.
Candy cane. What I do is slug, buck, slug, buck.
Nice. I thought you meant you packed it with candy canes and shot that shit out. All right.
The third one is just glitter, though.
It's a straight glitter bomb. So they're going to be outside counting when they come in to SWAT. Well, I heard 2 shots. Go now. Go.
It's the glitter. Go.
The glitter. That's just wrong. All right. I know I've started over on this 4 times now already. So there are 4 guns I want you to have in your house.
Right.
It's going to be a shotgun, some kind of .22, and some kind of center fire like hunting rifle. This is your AR-15. This is your Remington 700 SPS. This is something along that line. All right. And then a handgun.
Handgun.
So shotgun, 22, handgun, and rifle.
Hunting rifle.
We'll just say rifle.
All right.
And I know a lot of you are like, well, a 22 is a rifle. Oh, okay. 22, rimfire and a center fire, if that's how you want to look at it.
There you go.
Now, so first, shotgun. Let's talk about it. Mossberg has the 500 series.
Mm-hmm.
Any of those are great. The straight 500, you get it with like wood stock, something like that. You shoot an intruder with that, you're going to have a lot easier time saying, oh, well, I just keep this for ducks or whatever. And you might be able to get some slack on that. You go all the way to the other extreme to the 590, which is the other end of the series. Although they did just come out with this stupid one with clips that they had at SHOT Show, and people have been telling me about it. You don't have to get excited. And for those of you who just get mad because I just said clips with magazines.
Okay.
Secret of the pros.
Uh-huh.
So they have it with magazines. It just looks like a bad idea. If you want magazines, buy an AR-15.
Right.
And don't fuck around. So, all right. Any of the Mossbergs or the Remingtons, same thing. Remington has the, I think it's 800 series or I don't know. Whatever.
Yeah. What I would say as far as shotguns go, you can get away with buying a used shotgun relatively cheap.
Yes.
You can find a decent one under $200, or you should be able to.
There is, and I've mentioned this in the past, but Mossberg has a lower end brand called Maverick. I bought a hunting shotgun because I needed something that was rifled. Actually, I needed something with sights on it. What's the problem? And anyway, because all mine were like home defense shotguns, and one of the counties by us, you can only hunt with a shotgun. It's illegal to use a rifle. Because God forbid, shall not be infringed. This is what I keep saying.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I bought one. My point is, you can buy the Mavericks for like $250, and that's brand new. When I went to go buy a gun, they were all sloppy and kind of crappy in the used section. Although used, if you know what you're doing, you can straighten things out. Now, moving on. 22. There's a lot of decent 22s. I think I had some kind of like crappy Savage or something when I was a kid. I don't even know. But I don't think I've ever had a bad 22. Except there was some, and I can't tell you the brand because I don't remember.
Because it was crappy.
But my nephew came over with a 22, and this thing was awesome. If you pulled the trigger and the safety was on, nothing would happen. And then when you'd click the safety off, it would just fire. Wow. Nice. And I'm like, that's not really what I'm looking for.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like a safety at all.
You need to destroy that.
Sounds like an
right
unsafety.
You need to destroy that gun right now. So, all right. Any of the 22s, but I think the favorite in the prepping community is the Ruger 1022.
Right.
I've been pushing Kevin to kind of, step out of his comfort zone. I've
been shopping around for him a little bit. And honestly, same thing with the Ruger 1022. You're looking at a reasonable price for those. You may not be able to find one under $200, but they're right around there for new, out of the box,
Yeah. And, in the right community, you probably have those available used. Right. That's the thing. I know around here, used guns are hard to come by. Everybody just keeps everything they get.
Everything they can.
And whatever. So then stepping up from 22, I mean, actually, I have for my 22 rifle. Now, in New York, it's a assault weapon.
Right.
But it's registered, so rest easy.
It's a 22?
A 22.
And it's an assault weapon.
An assault weapon that takes 10-round magazines.
Okay.
So, yeah. Exactly. My point exactly. So anyway, I think it's called the Remington and you guys will have to look this up. You'll yell at me. I think it's the 597.
Okay.
And it's black and it's a little bit scary. Like you'll look at
well,
it and you'll
that's why you want to get the wood stock. It doesn't look as scary.
It doesn't look as scary for frightening schoolgirls, whatever.
Right.
All right. Now, let's talk handguns. Now, handguns really are a personal preference. Now, I got to tell you, I went out. I was like, oh, I'm going to get my handgun license and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently we have dogs. I wanted something like I was hell-bent on Kimber. Everything I read was Kimber's the greatest thing. And I looked at some kind of 1911 by Kimber. Well, 1911's a 45 is a pretty big gun.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not huge, but you're not going to carry it around for concealed carry unless you got some bulky clothing.
Right.
It's a pretty serious gun. So I went and I held it, and I was like, wow, that thing's huge. Then I held a SIG 1911. I think the one I have it's called a GSR, but it's a 1911 45. That's a really too big of a gun. The end of the world where you have the big holster and you're ready to go. It's cool. Mm-hmm. It's the gun you want to have. You're stopping bad guys. And that was the thing too. New York, we have limited rounds. So I want something with more stopping power.
Right.
And I think I had just read an article by the FBI, and this was a long time ago. But the article said, if you're using 9mm, shoot the whole magazine into a perpetrator. And it said, if you're using a 45, shoot them twice.
Right.
And I was like, oh.
There's a difference there.
There's a difference there.
Sure. There's, I think they consider a 9mm a 2-shot kill. And a 45 is a 1-shot kill.
All right.
So, I mean, that would explain why you would empty the magazine and shoot twice with the other.
With the other, you want to confirm things. But, and, there's different stories I may get into later here. But, so then I wanted something smaller. I moved down to, I bought a 22 pistol, and I think it was a Ruger SR22. And this was meant so, like, I could get the wife out shooting and different people, get them used to the smaller gun, get comfortable with it. Of course, that would never happen because in New York, if you don't have a card with that gun on it, you better never touch it.
Don't touch it.
Don't touch it.
Mm-hmm.
So, whatever. Now, I finally decided maybe happy middle of the road. H&K has a gun called the VP9. And I went with the SK, which is like subcompact or something. It's still a pretty big gun, but it's just nice. It's a nice little 9, but I don't really know because I haven't gotten it yet because New York sucks ass.
Yes.
Now let me tell you about how New York sucks ass. Apparently, even though I waited the 6 months, I feel like I keep telling this story even to you guys over and over again, but I have to say it again. Freaking 6 months, get my concealed carry.
Just to get the permit.
Just to get the permit.
Not buying a gun, but just to have a permit to own a gun.
For about 3 years, if I bought a gun, I would get the receipt from the gun, take that to the sheriff. They would give me a coupon that I take back to the gun guy, and they would put the gun on my pistol permit card so it'd have the serial number and the model number on it. Mm-hmm. And this would all happen in a day, and everything was good. Now I get the, and it's funny because the county next to us, they would have to wait for them to review it and mail it back to you. And I was like, oh, you guys are idiots, blah, blah, blah. I would never stand for that. Well, then I heard my county has done the same thing, and we have to wait 4 weeks or whatever. So it's now going on about 6 weeks, and I haven't gotten it yet. Mm-hmm. So that means my gun is still sitting at the gun store.
The one you paid for.
The one that's already paid for, because you have to take a paid receipt to the thing. Now, they're cool at my gun store. I can go in, they'll have coffee, they'll let me visit with my gun.
You can hang out with it.
We can hang out.
Say hi.
And I mean, so that's nice. And they like that, I drop a little coin here and there, but just the same, it's kind of a dick move to keep me away from my gun when I've already
Mm-hmm.
been vetted.
Right.
And I did call them, and they were like, "Oh, that's surprising. We're surprised it's been 5 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you wait 2 or 3 more and call us again?"
Okay.
So it's kind of
So,
exciting.
I mean, that's what happens though when the government's taking care of your problems.
Right, shall not be infringed.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say that over and over again throughout this episode, just so you guys know.
Good. You should make a point of it.
If you're drinking shots, this is
This is the
this is
episode,
the game. And,
this is
and
the shot
shall
game.
not be infringed. Oh, I did it again.
We ought to have a shot game on every episode. Just pick a phrase, and then every episode you can make it a drinking game.
Now,
a lot of people listen to this when they're driving to work in the
they're
morning.
driving to work.
So
they're
that's
out for
perfect.
a jog.
Perfect. You're just
They're
sitting
at
in one
the
spot.
gym, hitting the treadmill. Shall not be infringed.
And they're already hammered now.
They're already hammered. Nice. So anyway, moving right along. So they're never going to let me have my gun. It's the bottom line.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll see. I'll keep you guys updated maybe next week, maybe the week after, who knows. But I think it's actually backfiring on New York because it makes me feel like, oh, if it's this hard to get guns, I should just buy them all now.
Get all of them. Yeah.
So at least, then they'll, by the time I want them,
Right.
it'll be just showing up.
Yeah. It's like ordering something, buying something online.
And what
By
they
the time
don't know,
it gets there, it's like a surprise.
Yeah,
it's all
you're-
over. All brand new again.
That happened to me today. So the cool thing, believe it or not, and this is my plug for H&K, I watched a bunch of reviews on the gun, and I saw some that were like, well, if you shoot it underwater or you shoot it with a gun and then try and use it, they're kind of crappy. Or if you run it over with your army tank, sometimes it doesn't work after that. And I'm like, yeah, I could be a little forgiving on those things.
Yeah.
Then I watch a video, and the guy's shooting it underwater going, I don't know why they said that. Look, he's in the pool. He goes, my neighbor said I could borrow the pool. I didn't tell him what I was doing. He's in the pool freaking shooting with his GoPro or whatever. And it fired like 5 rounds underwater. I didn't think that'd work.
Well.
And not just like underwater pulls it out and shoots it. No, like
firing
underwater.
Underwater.
And I'm like, well, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
So then they shoot it with a shotgun. It kind of gets all blown apart and messed up. I think the safety stops working. But keep shooting it. Now, I think you're kind of a jerk if you're going to ruin a nice gun like that. But, whatever. And, I understand that was the point of, to test it.
Right.
But anyway, so the other reason I wanted to say this company is so far impressed me, although I haven't gone and shot this gun. That's my problem. But the other thing that impressed me, I decided, oh, well, since I can only have 10 rounds in my gun, I need some more magazines.
Right.
So I go online and I search, VP9 SK magazines. And the first thing that comes up is if you bought your gun between March 1st and like April 30th or something, you get a free magazine. Now, It already came with 3. And they're like, just send us your thing and we'll send the magazine for free and free shipping. So I go on there, $15 t-shirt, magazine, free shipping for both of it. I was very pleased. And I have the magazine. It was at my door today. Now you're thinking, but Chuck, you don't have the gun. I know, but I can hold the magazine. And I do have some bullets I can like put in there.
So you can load a magazine.
Like, go
and
guys,
have it ready.
Let's go.
That's,
I've been ready. So, all right. Anyway, sorry, I did get a little off task. So watch out. All right. So kind of got Handgun covered. They are, you do want something small that you can carry.
Yeah.
And if you're not going to carry it, it has a place to have one, but,
Yeah, I think
you need to carry it.
In a sense, home defense a lot of the times boils down to confined places, confined spaces, and a handgun can be can be useful in that sort of situation.
I usually grab the handgun just because it's almost always out and always there. So when I hear a noise outside, I grab the flashlight and the handgun.
Mm-hmm.
It's just one of those things.
Yeah, my neighbor was telling me a story about his girlfriend's cat got out, left the window open, cat jumped out, and there was a coyote outside. Cat jumped back up on the windowsill. He went outside with his AR-15 and turned the coyote inside out with it. And his girlfriend was mad at him, but he said the coyote knows where the food is now. So I mean that makes sense.
There you go.
But at the same time, having a handgun where you don't have to go outside, do enough to scare the dog away anyway.
So whatever. It depends. Whatever. I just know now. Kevin was talking about with the shotgun, the different rounds you might want to carry with that. Mm-hmm. Now, what I actually have is I bought like Cheaper Than Dirt, or I'd imagine like Bud K or one of those crappy catalogs or whatever has the bandolier thing where, it goes over your shoulder. And I think the one I have is like 50 rounds. And I have like 10 are target loads, 10 are slugs, 10 are the probably the other 30 are all buckshot. And because the different things.
Right.
If you live in one of the cool places where you can have the different rounds, like like I don't know, pepper spray or whatever. I don't know what they have.
There's what is that? Dragon's breath that
shoots the
fire?
50-foot flame. Whatever. You want to burn down the forest? I say, hey.
That's your prerogative.
Your prerogative shall not be infringed. That's what I'm talking about. Now, so we're up to the rifle. Now, the rifle is even cooler. Here's where you can get the cool AR-15. And guess what? You can probably, if you wait for the right sale. I mean, I always see people, well, I don't know where you could get that. That's not right. But you could get some kind of crappy AR-15 for about $450, and mil spec, and it'll shoot and it'll work. And if that's what your budget allows, that's probably right.
Yeah.
You can also probably get like the nice Remington 700. I like is probably around the $800 neighborhood. But you could find a decent hunting rifle even with a scope for about $300 or $400. I'm sure you guys will tell me, oh, well, you can get a Savage for, even less than that. Okay. I'm not stopping you. Now, maybe you have all 4 of those guns and you already bought 3 more AR-15s because you listen to me. And then you might want some kind of bolt distance gun.
Right.
I'm thinking maybe 6.5 Creedmoor. This is like your 308, only slightly cooler, and whatever. To each his own. Ruger makes one called the Ruger Precision rifle, I think, and it basically looks like an AR, but it's got the bolt. Still has a magazine. That comes in. You could get in the Creedmoor, or you can get it in the 308. Something like that might be nice to have. Or maybe you just get a Remington 700 in 308. Not a bad move either. There's a lot of different distance guns you can get. It's a wide world that you can get into.
Right. And if you've already got the 4 guns and the 3 AR-15s, you probably know what your needs
what you
and
want.
desires
You don't need
are.
me to tell you.
Right.
But, all right, so moving right along. Now, we bought all these guns. We've bought 1,000 rounds for each one because that only makes sense.
Right.
I don't think I have 1,000 for my shotgun. I probably have maybe 300.
Yeah, I think I'm in the same ballpark.
I'm not, whatever. But all my handguns, I have 1,000 rounds for. Well, the 22.
Yeah, that costs like
thousands.
$3.
I did see an article the other day that was like, "Ooh, this man was stockpiling assault weapons because he had one rifle and two scopes and 1,000 rounds."
Yep.
I'm like,
That sounds
what?
like you're not even doing a good job
Like
yet.
you're not even getting started. We haven't even gotten to the basics.
Right.
I mean, 1,000 rounds is not. How are you going to learn how to shoot it? How are you going to be safe with a gun if you don't put 1,000 rounds through it? That's my theory. So, speaking of being safe, you had some tips on how we can learn to effectively use our weapons.
Yeah, wouldn't it be nice if we could train and practice with our weapons, with our firearms, without having to go through $1,000 of ammunition to do it?
You're going to tell me about reloading because I don't want to reload bullets.
No, I'm talking about dry firing. All right.
Now, aren't all our listeners right now screaming at us, "Dry fire, danger, no"?
You'll ruin your weapon. You'll ruin your firing pin.
Oh, that's what I always hear, your firing pin.
And that is true for rimfire
Oh,
rifles.
for rimfire rifles.
But only rimfire
Only
rifles.
rimfire. All right. So, on the NRA website, this is what we have here. To be fair, this is sometimes true that it's bad to dry fire a gun. Dry firing most center fire rifles and handguns is perfectly safe once you've made certain they are unloaded and pointed in a safe direction. However, excessively dry firing a rimfire gun, that would be a 22. There's other rimfire guns, a lot of the old cowboy
mostly
guns
22s.
actually, but pretty much 22s, is a bad idea. The firing pin of a centerfire rifle or centerfire gun, handgun or rifle, is designed to strike a primer located in the center of the cartridge base.
Right.
When no cartridge is present, the firing pin strikes nothing. With a rimfire, though, the firing pin is positioned to strike the soft brass rim of the cartridge. When no cartridge is present, the firing pin strikes the hard steel of the breech face. Repeated dry firing of a rimfire can eventually peen the firing pin, dulling it and causing misfires. Dry firing offers convenient, easy practice, but if you're going to dry fire a rimfire gun, invest in snap caps. Now, those are like little brass things that it hits so it doesn't bounce into the wall of the gun.
Right.
And that
you don't want to mushroom tip your firing pin.
It's a no-go, huh?
Yep.
So, dry firing, what's the point? Why would I want to do this?
Well, a lot of I'll tell you a story. The first time
Tell me a story,
I
Kevin.
shot a .45 handgun.
It's a big, scary weapon.
It was the biggest handgun I had fired up to that point, and I've never
right.
fired any handgun that was larger than that since then. And I was at the range with a friend.
You're not used to a large tool?
That's not funny. When I was at the range, there was it was a 6-round. I don't remember the make of the gun, but fired through the 6 rounds. I thought there was one more round in there. When I pulled the trigger, I jerked. Yeah, like a girl. I flinched, and I realized, what the hell am I doing? You're not going to hit anything if you're flinching every time you pull the trigger. So, the point of dry firing is to learn how to keep on target and squeeze the trigger instead of pulling it.
Squeeze the trigger.
Right. So the idea is, let's back up a little bit. Let's talk about dry firing and safety.
Okay.
All
I
right,
like safety. Oh, so we should talk about safety when it comes to guns?
Yeah. That's one of those things. It's just as important as a car to learn how to be safe with it.
I did read the NRA blurb that said as long as it's been checked that it's not loaded and is pointed in a safe direction.
That's not all that goes into gun safety, though. Let's talk about it.
Let's.
So you can use your dry firing for practicing gun safety. You need to assume that all guns are always loaded, right? always check for yourself. Don't take somebody's word for it that there's nothing in there. And all right, never let the muzzle cover anything that you're not willing to destroy. That's number 2 there.
All right.
The firearm can fire. If the firearm can fire, assume it will fire. All right, so be careful with your sweep. I know that that was one of the things that I fucked up on quite a bit, even with an unloaded gun. Not being super careful about where it was pointed. So that's obviously something I've corrected since then, but it's something that you have to keep in mind. Trigger control. Don't put your finger on the trigger until you're ready to fire.
I like that one.
Right? Be aware of what's beyond your target. Now, that's something that I think a lot of people that are even accustomed to guns run into when the situation arises that they need to use it.
Yes.
I know there's a lot of stories about police officers in New York City trying to take down a suspect and shooting like 3 pedestrians in the meantime.
Well,
that's not
they shouldn't have been there. If, they were probably up to no good.
Yeah, they were probably up to no good, hanging out with somebody that cops were gonna have to shoot.
Exactly. You were on the same block.
Yeah. Be conscientious about that. You might think you're an expert shot and you're going to hit your target, but you can't always be positive of that.
A lot of the ranges, that's what you got to think about. When you're setting up your home gun range, that kind of thing, you really need to be like, a lot of people, when they shoot like a handgun, it'll kick up.
Right.
And they'll end up shooting a little higher than they want to. You need to, hey, where's that bullet going to go?
Right. And a lot of the, what was it? I think it was Wild Bill Hickok. I was reading something that he had said was that if you want to hit somebody in the chest, aim for their groin.
Ooh.
And I know a lot of those firearms that he was using in that time period, the handguns,
had the little kick.
They had a bit of a kick to them. So,
and they also held their guns like cowboys.
That's right. Like real men.
I always try and be like the real man and shoot one-handed. And then I found when I bring the second hand in, my aim got like 10 times better.
Right. It's almost
Turns
impossible.
Turns out two-hand is the way to go.
It's the way to go. Right. So, I mean, being aware of what's behind your target, though, and that's another thing with home defense that we were talking about earlier. That's why I load the first round with buckshot. Because in a situation, somebody's kicking down your door, you're in your bedroom, it's 1 o'clock, you're panicking, somebody's in the house, the dog's going crazy, you grab your gun. You don't want to fire slugs, past somebody breaking into your house, into your kid's bedroom, So birdshot is gonna be a warning to somebody, but it's not gonna accidentally kill your kid.
Yeah.
So I mean, practicing safety, especially if you're teaching like your kid or somebody else to shoot, dry firing and safety. It's a great way to teach them safety without making mistakes.
So that way they can turn around and be like, "Oh, what about this?" and wave the gun in your face, and to grab the gun and yell at them before it's a problem.
Right.
Just a thought. Just putting that out there.
So, all right. So dry firing. Now let's talk about practicing with dry fire.
I feel like you got off task.
What are some of the drills that you might try?
One, you really want to be able to get that gun from your holster up to the ready.
Up to the ready.
That may be digging around in your pants for a little bit. Pulling up your pant leg. It may be switching from your AR-15 to your handgun when you realize that the magazine is now empty. These are things you want to practice doing. They also sell dummy magazines, which I feel like you could just use magazines without bullets. I'm sure I just offended some NRA instructor out there or someone. Yeah. But
now when it comes to, let's just back up a little bit. When it comes to the draw, when it comes to the quick draw, if you're just some dude in your house with a handgun practicing your quick draw for no apparent reason, Take it slow.
And
Slow
the twirling
and smooth,
the gun
right?
with the bullets,
Yeah.
that's a no-go.
That's just dumb.
That's just dumb.
Yeah, that's dumb. So,
So it's hard to keep it pointed in a safe direction when you're twirling it.
when you're twirling it, right.
Gotcha.
And those sorts of braggadocious.
Ooh, I like that word. I think that's the first time on the Survival and Basic Badass podcast.
A more than 2-syllable word has been spoken.
That could be too,
But yeah, that sort of stuff is, you're not learning anything. You're not learning how to use your firearm better by learning how to do some sort of trick with your handgun. So once you've mastered a slow draw, you need to first focus on the steps that it takes to get your gun out and aimed. So just take it slow. Figure out what you're doing. Now, we're still talking about dry firing. We're not talking about a loaded gun here. Especially with the quick draw type of stuff, there's a lot of people that shoot themselves in the leg for just being stupid. Yeah.
Now, again, I'm going to offend a lot of people. Everybody has their own taste. My buddy who's a cop, me and him are always arguing about this. I don't usually keep one in the chamber with my handguns.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, most of my rifles and stuff, I don't put one in the chamber until I'm ready to go do something.
Right.
Now, if I'm like, oh, I'm going to go out and shoot that deer, and I'm not walking out into the woods, I'm expecting to see a deer in the next 10 minutes, there's one in the chamber.
Mm-hmm.
But, I don't know if I'm going to walk up and see something. But that's when I'm holding my gun in the ready, you know? I'm not just carrying around a gun with one in the chamber. I know guns don't just go off, but why tempt fate?
Mm-hmm.
I've got too many friends who've dropped rifles out of hunting stands and had them go off. For some reason, people love to lean their rifles against trees.
Mm-hmm.
Just lay it on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
They fall and go off. The dog walks into it. It goes off. I understand you're hunting at those moments.
Right.
But...
And 99 times out of 100, if you drop a gun or throw a gun or do anything, it's not going to go off. 99 times out of 100 is probably way too much odds. It's probably, 999 times out of 1,000. It's not going to.
But you don't want to be that guy. Right. So, that's your call. You do it your way. I know I'm confident being the badass that.
Mm-hmm.
And, people are like, well, it takes a second longer. All right. Get in the habit when you're dry firing to, rack around and be ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
Another
great thing with dry firing is practicing reloading.
Okay.
Now,
changing magazines is huge. If you're a serious fighter and you're planning, you need to be changing magazines.
Yeah, and you need to be able to do it fast. You don't want to be fumbling around and dropping things. Now, they make training magazines that you can get that have the same weight, and it's going to have the same reaction as far as you're not going to pull the trigger one time and your slide's going to come back. You're going to be able to use it repeatedly, like a real life situation.
Yep.
Also, a great thing with dry firing is practicing your non-dominant hands. If you use your right hand, if you're right-handed, practicing with your left hand, practicing one-handed, practicing from different stances, prone, standing, kneeling, practicing inside your house. Think about the situation where somebody is breaking your house out into your house, and you come out and you have to confront this person. How is your house set up? What's the layout like? Where are you gonna be? Are you going to be able to be standing inside of a doorway?
Or are you going to not accidentally
undercover?
shoot your kids? What do your kids know about what you're going to do?
Mm-hmm. So, those are all important things with dry firing that you can practice, and you don't have to spend any money on doing it. You can, watch muzzle control. Yeah, another thing I saw that people were doing was balancing quarters on the end of their barrel.
Oh.
And then trying to keep that quarter balanced on the end of the barrel and squeeze the trigger without dropping it off. So, Yeah. Again, don't practice dry firing with a fire rifle.
Okay.
And you know,
But
as Wyatt Earp said, fast is fine, but accuracy is everything. In a
nice.
gunfight, you need to take your time in a hurry.
I like it.
So in other words, if you're panicking, you're gonna make mistakes. But if you build up this muscle memory,
Yes.
Say in a safe way, you're gonna be a lot safer with a loaded gun.
I like it. Now, you just pointed out that accuracy might be a key point in your gun training. There is a company called iTarget Pro.
Right.
And what they do is they sell these laser rounds that are they're a bullet that basically when you fire your gun and the pin hits it, your firing pin, it'll fire a laser for that 1 second, and they set up a target with your Bluetooth or whatever phone, and you end up shooting at the target, and it'll record where those hits go, and it even makes like a bang noise, and kind of cool. I think they're like $89. We've been reaching out to them to be a sponsor. They showed some interest. We haven't heard anything, and now I feel like an idiot plugging them anyway.
But I mean, if it's quality
cool.
product,
it looked pretty cool. Something I'm interested in. We may end up promoting them in the future, but that's something I haven't bought yet. I'm looking at possibly purchasing one. I know just going through and firing over and over again and really practicing. But also, if you're really serious about being like a gunfighter, you really need to put the time in, changing from the AR to the handgun, back to the AR. You need to set up targets at different distances. You need to come up with drills that are randomly shooting at various targets. You need to practice moving while you're shooting. When you're moving, that's how you don't get shot. I actually just was reading a study that they were talking about, shoot and move and be moving all the time. And they had law enforcement guys training with like little, basically like paintball rounds. And these are guys who are trained to move and shoot. And so they had them all stand still and face each other. And believe it or not, with the stress of, doing it, because the rounds they were using actually really hurt.
Yeah.
And they were saying with the stress and anxiety of the situation, at 25 yards, they said that only 51% of the rounds hit the body of the opposite guy, of shooting at each other. Then they tried while they were running and shooting, and they said only 11% of the rounds hit body. So, and they also said that when the guys were running and shooting, they almost all went to shooting with one hand instead of using both hands like they did in training.
Right.
And they said when they confronted them and said, why'd you go to one hand? And all the guys were like, oh, I didn't even realize I did that. So this is where the training comes in, and the repetitiveness.
Right.
And doing it over and over again, and realize, what you're doing. And you really got to put the time in. And,
and repetition really does, muscle memory is a real thing when it comes to specific actions. And
especially when you add stress.
Right.
Loud noises. I mean, I got to tell you, shooting at targets, I was shooting it at paper targets for forever. And then when I go and try and shoot, groundhogs or something, and they're moving and they're watching me, and I can feel my pulse goes up when I go out looking and whatever. And now I'm pretty consistent, and I get them pretty much every time. But the first like 10 times,
right.
I'm missing, or, whatever. I don't know what was happening. I also think I was using too small of a round, but we won't talk about that. But learning to shoot at a moving target, adding stress, all this stuff makes a difference. Now, obviously, there's a million things you can do to make it safe training and, safe areas and ways to do this. I like that. But I'm just saying maybe seek out some professional training or watch some videos on YouTube. Guys who are doing it. I guess YouTube's maybe not the one. I'll put a link. We just found a nice training like YouTube alternative that is pro gun. I'll put a link to that. So that way you guys can, find some of this useful information. But it really matters. You need to put in the time. Another thing I wanted to mention earlier was you should have your gear the same way. So, like when you're practicing getting your concealed carry, you should have it where you always carry it. Be that on your ankle, whatever, you should be practicing getting it from there. Maybe, in your belt, in your back of your pants, front of your pants.
Now, a lot of these guys listening to the show live in reasonable states where
they
you can carry it open on a holster on your belt like a normal person instead of having to hide it someplace.
What, some kind of cowboy?
like a normal person would
like
carry a gun.
Like in the Wild West?
Yep.
All right. So, whatever. But to practice it how it's going to be in reality. But what I was going to say with that is when you buy maybe a vest, you should put all your magazines in a set order and a set place. So muscle memory, you can just change magazine, put your empties in the same place, or just get in the habit of dropping your empties on the ground. Whatever it is that works for you, then be consistent and do the same thing over and over. This is going to matter. Just like some idiots go play golf or go do whatever, maybe you should be hitting the range on the weekly.
Yeah.
Really putting the time in if survival is something you're serious about. Now, if you're prepping for, a flood or an earthquake or whatever like that, a different way. But if you're thinking, the end of the world is going to come and there's going to be strange gangs and looting and whatever, then maybe take it a little serious and up your preps.
Right. Right. And, another great thing about the dry firing is that if you live in a suburban area, this is a way you can practice without having to go to the range and spend the money. Now, actually firing your firearm is important, though. I don't want to say that you can become an expert shot and never fire a round. That's not the case. Fire? No.
Okay. But it's still a good idea to dry fire and practice. Also, it's a good way to teach yourself not to flinch and not to, overreact. And maybe out on the range, you can have people hand you magazines, sometimes with bullets, sometimes without.
Right.
And like you said, really shooting with a quarter on the end is kind of going to rule that out if you're moving or not.
Right.
But you can kind of see, or like Kevin said, maybe you're not counting your rounds. Have them put 6 rounds in one time and, 10 rounds the next time.
Yeah. And a great time to dry fire is actually after you've been firing the gun and all the mistakes that you've been making will make themselves clear.
Nice. Now, next, when you spend your money and you go out and you buy your AR-15 or you buy whatever, guess what else you might want? A nice trauma bag. An IFAC, if you will.
Okay.
That would be a individual first aid kit, I believe is what IFAC stands for.
Okay.
I hear mixed reviews on that. Now, we actually have a sponsor, mymedic.us. Now, they sell all kinds of personal first aid kits, and they also have it so that you can set up and build your own. They have for all kinds of different individual products that you can get, that you can build the kit that's right for when you're out shooting, spending the day. I think you'd be making a mistake to be going out to the gun range and not have some kind of tourniquet. Maybe you shouldn't be going out in the woods hunting without some kind of tourniquet.
Yeah.
Maybe you have a range set up in your yard.
And you know and I know that there are a bunch of assholes out in the woods that are going to shoot at anything that moves, trying to get a deer.
You know what it is? It's always turkey season that scares me.
Turkey, yeah.
It's turkey. They're sitting looking, you got two guys 20 feet from each other, and they're both making gobbling noises and God knows what. And they're like looking at each other. I think there's one there. I see it moving. And then they shoot the other hunter. And it happens all the time. It's always turkey. See, I won't even go out in turkeys. Because you know what it is? Turkeys are freaking smart. And, I mean, I know you're thinking, you know what, Chuck? You're an idiot. I see 20 turkeys in my yard, and they just stand there, and I yell at them, and they just stand there. But I'm telling you, you go out there with a gun, and they're like, and they're gone.
They're hard animals to kill, too.
They're hard. They're not the easy, fun thing you're thinking they are. But that's okay. So, anyway, what it is, this company, My Medic, they set up, I guess the way that they came to be is someone in their family ended up being in an accident and passing on. And what had happened was it was like a car accident in the middle of nowhere, and there was 30 minutes before an ambulance could arrive. And supposedly, based on the story I read, people maybe had the skills but not the tools to do, life-saving, or maybe not enough skills to know how to use what they had.
Exactly.
And save a life. So these people were like, you know what? We want to get as many first aid kits out in the hand of people, who can use them and have it apply to, real life situations. And I think that's pretty cool. So I'm kind of psyched that they're a sponsor. Think they're sending us some stuff. We're going to check it out and do some reviews and show you guys. But I'm kind of excited about that. Now, you're thinking, well, you know what, Chuck, though? First aid kits aren't sexy.
They're not sexy.
They're not sexy, but they might make the difference.
That's true.
Now, we actually have another sponsor.
Yeah?
Now, this is where sexy comes in. Turns out, save your life, pretty important.
More important than
sexy.
Almost any other thing.
Yeah, kind of. If you're not able to go to the gun range tomorrow, then it kind of makes the rest of it useless. But who doesn't like sexy? Now, you've probably heard the expression tactical.
Tactical.
You
gotta look good when you're braving the end of the world.
Now, these are the guys that got the vest and the magazines, and they know what's going on. Well, if you want to step up your tactical level, there's a company called Tac Pack.
Right.
And what they do is they have a monthly, like you have the crate club type stuff or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's straight like tactical gear.
Right. It's like a magazine subscription that actually has cool stuff that's cool in the magazine.
Exactly. They cut right to the chase. And these are guys who are like contractor types that know what they're doing, know what kind of equipment is actually useful in the field, and you can really, get your hands on it and it's going to work.
Right.
Like how many times have you gone, like I carry a Leatherman. I don't know, you probably carry a Leatherman or have one in your truck or whatever, right? So how many times has somebody been like, oh, you like a good multi-tool, and they'll buy you that $9 one at Home Depot or Lowe's.
The one that's broken the first time.
Yeah, here. And you go to use it, and it's just crap. That's not going to happen with these guys.
Right.
So these guys are people who've actually used the equipment in real life situations, and they put together kits with stuff they know is going to work and actually pay off for you. And they put it together and they send it out once a month. So you're just getting an awesome present for yourself. Maybe you have a significant other that wants to step up their coolness.
Maybe you've been trying to convince your spouse to get involved in prepping, and they don't know where to start.
This is where to start. We actually had a listener who sent us an email.
Right, Chris.
I want to say something else. So that's great.
Mm-hmm.
Chris. And Chris is awesome where he's like, oh, how do you get your significant other to get into prepping? Well, this might be where you start. So it's called Tac Pack. And we actually set it up that if you use the promo code BADASS, when they send out your first shipment, crate, whatever, of awesome stuff, they're also going to send you a gun cleaning mat.
Mm-hmm.
Those are always cool, always useful. I know I have 3 or 4, and when I'm laying out those stupid detonant springs that shoot out of the AR-15, and you're always losing them, having stuff laid out and organized on a nice gun cleaning mat, A+. They said you use the promo code BADASS, they're going to hook you up, send one of those out to you. So, anyway, moving right along, we were going to talk about maybe getting your spouse into prepping.
Yeah.
So now we're only going to go short. I know this episode's actually a little bit long, and you guys are getting a little excited. You're like, oh, the BADASS going over an hour, getting excited. But so I was listening to this book, the 299 Days series.
Okay.
And the main character, his wife, anytime he tries to talk about, like, I think she sees the reality of the world. Like, she sees that on the news, the government's spending like crazy. Mm-hmm. She sees what's happening in the stock market. She sees different things, but she doesn't want to talk about it or think about it. Mm-hmm. And so anytime, he brings it up, people are crazy and, somebody in the neighborhood got robbed yesterday. Oh, I don't want to hear about it. And the character in the book actually gets to the point where she puts her hands over her ears and is like, no, mm-hmm. I can't hear you, whatever. So it gets crazy. And so he ends up just like prepping in secret. Mm-hmm. Now, the author and the character end up taking that as a win. The prepping in secret.
Right.
I'm not sure that's going to play out. Because he even things get worse in the world and then ends up like, hooray, look at me, I got everything for us. Has that ever worked out for you with your significant other?
Nope.
Where you're like, you told me not to do this, but I did it, and look, it worked.
Yep. No, that's never worked for me.
That's never worked? All right. So I think at least making them aware of the steps might, and just try and gently ease people in.
Right. And, keep in mind that when you're talking to your spouse, prepping isn't necessarily about owning guns and having, mountains of ammunition. No,
although I'm pointing out that is a good thing.
That is a good thing.
But no,
but there's nothing wrong with
food storage.
Yeah, right. Talk about when the blizzard comes and it's 15 degrees outside and the power goes out.
Wouldn't it be good if we just had a generator?
Yeah. Wouldn't it be nice
Let's start there.
We could grow some fresh vegetables in the garden in the backyard?
I'm worried about my health. I'm seeing I got a little bit of a belly, and I'm thinking, maybe it's because I'm eating at McDonald's too much.
Right. If only we had fresh vegetables.
If we had a garden, they would call me Chuck who eats carrots a lot. That's what I'm thinking.
A lot of the times, though, when you're in a relationship with somebody, you kind of bounce ideas off of each other.
Okay.
And it's real easy to be like, hey, yeah, that sounds interesting. But pay attention to your spouse when they say, it'd be really cool if we had bees. Latch onto that and be like, you know what? That's a fantastic idea. It'd be really cool if we, if we made a little kit for the car with jumper cables.
Or you know what? You want me to spend time with the kids. You know what would be a fun hobby to start out with the kids? Mm-hmm. I find when you latch on to other people's ideas, there's a book by Dale Carnegie that I was excited about way back called How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Yeah, it's a good book.
It's a very good book. And one of his things is, it turns out if you want to make friends and get people excited about, whatever, get excited about what they're talking about. Actually listen to them and kind of go with their ideas. And that's how you kind of bring people into your fold. Well, just like Kevin was starting to get at here, is when they bring up different paths, any little opening, expand.
Right.
Anything that's a plus, even if it's something small, oh, I'd like to go out for a walk. Hey, that sounds great. I love walking. Why don't we actually go for a hike and take it a little bit more, a little bit out in the woods, easy, baby steps. Then maybe a couple weeks later, you go hiking again. Maybe the next time, you know what? I know this great place to go hiking. Lots of great walks around the lake. We could camp there. Wouldn't that be fun?
Stay there overnight.
Kevin, you are talking crazy talk. This is the kind of thing. It's just a slow progression. But trying to force it and bring all this stuff on, saying, you know what, the stock market's going to collapse and, the government's raising interest rates and they're printing trillions of dollars and it's just not sustainable. They don't want to hear it.
Right.
You got to be gentle. You got to, slowly, baby steps. And, maybe, you know what, it'd be good, honey, if we had a first aid kit that was nice.
Yeah.
And you went over to My Medic and you were like, bam.
I know how we can save some money and go to My Medic.
Because what I didn't tell you is if you use the code BADASS.
That seems to be a theme here with our
pretty
codes.
Much, if you use the coupon code BADASS anywhere you go, it's going to open doors for you. I'm just saying. So they're actually going to give you 15% off. That is some serious savings.
Right.
So I'm seeing 15% off at My Medic. You're stocking up on first aid supplies, huge discounts. Then you're going over to Tac Pack. Badass. You got free gun mats, usually about $15 when I buy them. Right there, bam, savings. And your wife's cleaning guns with you. So, hey.
Not my wife, but.
Well, this was a hypothetical, but maybe you're the woman listening to us and maybe your husband needs to step up his man card. Well, maybe you get him that Tac Pack every month and all of a sudden he's tactical.
That's right.
I think they call them in the book I was just listening to mall ninjas. And that's when you got all the gear, but you don't actually go out and practice shooting or put the time in.
There you go. So, now, I remember seeing some pictures of Jared Kushner in Kandahar.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Wearing a very stylish suit with a flak jacket on.
Yeah.
And he was looking good. Now, he's a little bit scrawny and a little bit nerdy, and when he talks, it sounds like it's kind of high-pitched and hurting your ears.
And then he did get into some trouble later.
Yeah. But, at the same time, he looked good with that flak jacket on.
Yeah.
You want to look good when you do it.
You know what? So you guys might want to hold off before you buy any body armor. Trying to work out some sponsors and discounts there. I've been reaching out to people.
All right.
I'm just saying.
So hold out for that one.
Or, if you're listening to this podcast maybe a little bit after the release, just try that code BADASS. See what doors it can open for you.
See what happens.
You never know. Also, I don't know if you guys heard last week, we joined some kind of prepper network. Kevin?
Yeah, Self-Defense Radio Network.
Yeah, is that it?
I think that's our group that we've joined onto there. The Self-Defense Radio Network. There's a lot of other podcasts. If you're looking to fill up your iPod with stuff to listen to when you're on the go.
You love talking about guns like I love talking about guns?
You ran out of badass podcasts because you've listened to, you binged all of them.
Like there's a lot of them out there. Yeah. But iTunes will only let us have like 100 out at any given time. So, and we're not once a week. That might not be enough for you. You know, it turns out there are 7 days in a week.
Right.
So if you burn through your Survival and Basic Badass podcast on Monday, and then you're like, but what do I do for the rest of the week? Well, one, you should check out our YouTube channel, because we're going to start to fill that out a little bit, give you a little bit more. But also, the Self-Defense Network.
Yeah, the Self-Defense Radio Network is it's a great spot. They've got I think we're up to
It's a lot.
12 or 15
at least
different
12 podcasts. It's pretty exciting. A lot going on there. A lot of like-minded individuals. So you might want to check that out. And also, actually, if you're watching this video right now on YouTube, we ended up throwing this podcast episode on YouTube. You can actually watch us with all my exciting hand animations.
And gestures, amazing facial hair.
All
All
kinds of good stuff. You might have noticed a really awesome intro to the beginning. Well, that was brought to you by Kilo 23, who has a YouTube channel that has all kinds of great training and survival stuff on there. He works together with a lot of different guys, putting up different content, but a lot of it is themed, survival and prepping and just some great training. Well, he's actually kind of got together with us and decided to help us out with our YouTube and kind of expand the brand a little bit. So I wanted to throw him a shout out and give him credit for the awesome intro that you guys saw at the beginning of this. And you may want to check out his channel, because he's putting up a lot of great content. And I actually saw some videos he's got on there about how to approach, handling with your weapons and learning different survival, I would say, like breaching maneuvers and different things like that. He's got a lot of cool stuff on there about how to,
Yeah, I've gone through weapons. I've gone through some of his videos, and he's got a lot of different interesting stuff on
We
there.
are excited, one, that we're going to start bringing you a lot more YouTube content. We're going to try and make it a regular thing where we record our episodes. So those of you who don't like podcasts or whatever and love staring at YouTube and want to see, awesome beards all day.
Right.
Well, we got you covered. So I think that about wraps up today.
That's it.
So with that, stay safe, and we'll talk to you guys next week.